Critters from 1986. This is directed by Stephen Herrick, who went on to direct a lot of classics. Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, The Mighty Ducks, Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, The Three Musketeers. Like, this guy went on to have some fucking career. Now we have Dee Wallace in this. We have Billy Zane, right? Isn't he in this? Or am I thinking of one of the sequels? Because, like I said, I've only seen the first three. The third one I remember I saw as a kid, and I only remember because it's Leonardo DiCaprio's first movie. I don't remember anything about it. And this has never been a series I was big into or anything. I never really loved the first two. But I haven't seen these movies in like 10 years. So it brings me back to a point that I go to often, but it's a nice carryover from finishing the whole Ghoulies franchise. Movies like this, like, I know I nitpick and make fun and poke holes of logic and stupidity all the time. It's just how I watch movies, and it's just how I think. It's just how I am. So I have especially nowadays, a certain standard for movies that I watch. Now, everybody has their own opinions and tastes and likes. We always say that, and that's awesome. There's people who strictly watch and put out reviews and talk about movies like Sharknado level quality, like, to me, to terrible fucking movies. But they're entertaining. You can have fun with those. Some of them. And that's where the debate always comes and things always come to a head. So coming from Ghoulies, like I said for Ghoulies 1, I think the original Ghoulies is a very well-made movie. I think it's a very atmospheric film. And for a pre-Full Moon Charles Band Empire, release, I think it's a very good horror comedy. There's some stupid shit in it for sure. But I can have fun with the stupid shit. Then we go to Ghoulies 2. And in Ghoulies 2, it's much more ridiculous. It's much less quality filmmaking and all of that. But it's still entertaining as hell. There's a lot more stupid stuff in it than the first movie. But you could still have fun with that premise. So then it changes, like so many movies in a franchise, or it's like especially horror comedies or like Full Moon movies and things of this type of nature, these types of movies. When I get to Ghoulies 3, Ghoulies go to college. And I'm well aware, trust me, going into a movie called Ghoulies 3, Ghoulies Go to College, what to expect. I'm fully aware the level of filmmaking to expect. But it's terrible, and not in a fun way. And Ghoulies 4 was even worse. That was abysmal. I was suffering through it. So why, as I always say, is this? Why does the first two movies, as stupid as they can be at times, are very highly entertaining, but then we have ones that are very supposed to be entertaining, very low budget, but it just doesn't work for me. It's just terrible, and a lot of it comes down, pretty much all of it. If you notice, everything that I poke holes in movies, it's all the writing. It's either dialogue or a line or logic or a plot hole or why do this or when you can do that. It's all writing, like 99% of it. And when I watch a movie like Ghoulies Go to College, yeah, it's a fun premise, but the writing could be better, like even for a movie of that budget. And that's what I think the big difference is from horror comedies, and not just horror comedies, but any type of B-grade horror movie that is supposed to be not a great movie technically, but people love them, and I have a slew of those movies that are absolutely terrible films in every technical aspect that you could put out there. But I adore them. Some just work for others, and, don't for the other people. And it's just that line that separates it. And I feel like the writing can always be a little better in some of these terrible movies. Now, Critters is not a terrible movie. Critters, the first one, from what I remember, like I said, it's been a long time. This is a fun movie. And, you know, this movie gets thrown in with the Gremlins clones, which it was written way before Gremlins, like, was a thing and was released. So, same with Ghoulies. You know, Ghoulies was in production and being written and stuff when Gremlins was in production. It's weird how we have 3 movies that all include little creatures running amok all over the place that came out, or being written and came out at the same time, in the same year. But none of them are really rip-offs of each other. I've never seen that. There are similarities, of course, especially it's puppet work. Of course there's going to be similarities. But all the stories, from the Ghoulie story, the Gremlin story, and the Critter story, are completely different films. So, without further ado, let's jump into Critters from 1986. It's going to be fun going through this series. Now, there's, 5 of these, right? There's 5 films, and then there's like a 8-9 episode series, like that was on Shudder, like a mini-series or a web series or something. So, we got that to look forward to. Ah, yes, that's right. And the national treasure, Lin Shaye, is in this movie, because this is New Line Cinema. God, I love Lin Shaye so much. I mean, for those who don't know, New Line Cinema, Bob Shaye was the head and, founder of New Line Cinema. Lin Shaye's the sister. I adore her in everything. I talked to her through email, through Jack Shoulder, gave me her email, tried setting something up. It's a whole thing. I'm not getting into it now, but it's a dream. Who knows? But maybe sometime in the future. Okay, right off the bat, the idea of an asteroid prison, fantastic. Great idea. You guys know me with sci-fi. I'm very hit or miss with it. It has to be very original. It's not just, Star Trek. Like, I've never been a Star Trek fan, ever. It's just very generic to me. I know it's blasphemous for some people, but just ships in space and stuff like Star Wars. I love the first 3. Those are classics. I mean, you can't deny that. But besides that, if it's just sci-fi like that, we're in space and there's a fucking galactic army and stuff, none of that interests me outside of the Star Wars movies. It has to be something very original. And I always cite, like, The Fifth Element by Luc Besson. It's a top film of mine. And that is one of the most creative and just all-around inventive film ever made for me. The diva dance scene, particularly, that's something you will never see again in a film unless it's being heavily emulated or homaged to. You've never seen it before, you'll never see it again. There's so much of that in The Fifth Element. So, off the bat, I'm very happy with the asteroid prison, and they're bringing a whole group of Krites, as the critters are called. I forgot all about that. They're called Krites. And the design of them, first of all, is awesome. The small little things, they look like kind of hedgehogs. Don't they shoot like quills, or needles out of them? And they're covered in the fur, and they got the belly that shows. The sharp-ass teeth inside of their mouths, and the claws. Awesome design to the critters. So this prison is transporting a bunch of Krites, and they end up escaping and getting away from this prison. I really like the opening score by David Newman. Forgot he did the score for this. And see, this is what I mean. Like, the designs of the aliens that are on the ship and the critters. I'm just calling them critters from now on for the rest of this series. I'm not calling them fucking Krites. They're critters. It's the titular character. But the designs of the aliens, like the ones with the green faces, and then there's the one, I guess, the Lord or whatever, and he has the prosthetics on him. It looks like tentacles on the sides of his neck, but it's not really, but kind of. All of that looks great. And the Chodo brothers do the effects. I forgot that also. So this just shows how it's been forever since I've seen Critters. But the Critters stole their fastest spaceship, one of their fastest, and they have enough fuel to travel the galaxy 10 times over. We're not even going to try to figure that out or get into it or anything, and it doesn't matter because this is an example where it doesn't matter for me. Where I'm not going to overanalyze it, whatever. It doesn't matter what fuel, wherever, however the hell they get to planet Earth, it does not matter. And they end up flashing to Kansas, where we have the Brown family. And this is where we have Dee Wallace as the mother of the family, Helen Brown. Nothing really to do with anything like usual, but their kitchen, the green paint everywhere, like on the cabinets and stuff, what an ugly fucking color. Like, I never liked the color green in a house or anywhere, like, and especially like puke green. It's just never a good choice for me, like visually, aesthetically. I don't like looking at it. But this like light green shit here, I don't like it either. But hey, Brown family, you do you. So they're asking a teenage daughter about her boyfriend, what happened to the other guy. And I take offense to the little boy. I don't know his name yet. But he says, some dork from New York. Yo, I'm from New York, motherfucker. Don't make fun of where I'm from. Brad. That's his name. The son. He's not a smart kid. Like, right off the bat, from my eyes. If you're trying to fake your way out of school, come on, this is 101. Everyone should know this from elementary school. You try to fake your thermometer reading, you never get it to 106 degrees Fahrenheit. Then you're getting rushed to the hospital, and you're not even being believed, just like he's not here, because you would be dead. So, this kid's not too bright. There's a rack of oranges in their kitchen that you get a quick little shot before it cuts to the next scene. The whole rack of oranges is full, completely. And this is breakfast in the morning. So they better have just went out shopping the night before. If not, they're wasting a bunch of oranges. Okay, I love the fact our introduction to Lin Shaye's character, Sally, is her face revealed after we see a newspaper she's reading that says, Mr. Spock is the father of my baby, in the National Enquirer. That's a great gag. Then we meet Harv, the sheriff. I like the little chemistry between him and Lin Shaye. They got a nice little comedic thing going. Then we meet Charlie, the drunk. And he's clearly mentally unstable. One of those that you find where the buses don't run. That are more than happy. That wanders aimlessly in the moonlight going... And he's having premonitions, and like he says through his feelings, that like he feels that they're coming. That the aliens are coming. But hey, aside from all that shit I just said, he's absolutely correct. Yeah, this guy Charlie had a pitching career. I love how Charlie says when he's with Harv and Sally... And he says, wait, I'm hearing messages. And then you hear, like, a message. And he says, what, you hear that? And Harv says, it's the radio. That's funny as hell. So the two alien, they're like hitmen who are going to take out the critters because all they're driven by is the need to feed and just hunt and rip people apart. So Ugg and Lee are their names. And again, I love the green faces on them. If they're going to Earth, then I'm presuming that they're going to get actual faces because they're played by actors. So, I mean, I answered my own question. But they got to get to Earth and stop the critters from killing the entire world. Oh, I remember this. There's that rock star, Johnny Steele, in this movie. He's a fun character. I forgot all about that. So, I mean, good to see him after like a decade plus. And yeah, they just got faces melted onto them. Even the effects in space look really cool. Like with that red, it looks like a nebula or something like that in space, and the spaceship zooms by. Looks really cool. I'm guessing it looks like some type of forced perspective with models and maybe some animation. It holds up. Like for 86, looks really good. You letting this guy Charlie walk on your car when he's going around saying, first of all, he's a drunk, but he's going around saying that there are aliens coming and he's getting messages in his mind? I don't know if I'd do that. To be fair, he's not primarily working on the car. It's the father of, the Brown family, but he's helping them. Still, I wouldn't ever accept his help. Cool dynamic, though, between Brad and Charlie. I like the little scene with the fireworks and the slingshot and stuff. That's all really cool. All the acting's good in this. Like, much better than I remember. Like, there's not really any, there's a little overacting at times. And I mean, the kid who plays Brad, and it's child acting. I always say it's very hit or miss. But I like him. He does a good job. Everybody's doing a good job so far in this. But he says with those fireworks that the best in the state. He's in Kansas. I hope they're legal in Kansas in 1986. If not, then Brad, child, deserves to be in prison forever, because he's a law-breaking criminal. We got a Coca-Cola can product placement. When Brad goes into his room, for a second, I thought that there was a poster on his wall for the film Critters, because there's this poster, and as it pans up, it's very fast, but then you see the title, and it's definitely not Critters, but it looks just like a critter, like with real sharp teeth. And I thought to myself, that's a great idea, to put your own movie poster, like make the poster at a time and put it, in the background in your film. I wonder if that's ever been done. If anybody can think of an example of that, where there's a movie with a poster in a scene in the background of the movie. I'd love to hear an example of that, because I can't think of any off the top of my head. So then Charlie ends up seeing the Krite spacecraft that they ended up hijacking, and I mean, I don't know how they can, these little creatures, they know how to fly a spaceship. I don't know about any of that. That's stupid. But they're on their way, arriving on Earth, and it flies over Charlie's head. And then Brad hears and sees it. And this whole thing with Brad, a young boy seeing a spaceship crash, it reminds me of the classic 50 sci-fi film. This is going to kill me. Is it 52, 53? Invaders from Mars. What a great movie that is. And I think it has such an underrated shot in that movie that we see a few times of the dirt path that leads to where the ship crashed, with the fence that goes along it, and just the color usage and how the sky looks. That's such a beautiful shot in the movie, and it's never talked about. I did a quick video of that a year plus ago or so, but great movie. I preferred vastly to Tobe Hooper's remake. So they end up seeing where the ship crashed, or nearby. They see a cow's body that's been eaten and mutilated. I love the red eye effect on the critters. And you guys know how I feel about the green eye, full moon, Ghoulies, Charles Band associated green eye effect in most of those films. The red eyes look great. Like when she's looking through the window and she just sees it rise up and you see the glowing eyes. That looks fantastic. The pacing in this, let me say this. The pacing, the first half hour of this movie, it's very well paced. It's a very well paced first act of this movie. Just like Ghoulies, the original Ghoulies, just like Gremlins. So again, all these three creature films, the originals, the pacing is very, very good at setting up the atmosphere, setting up the feel of this movie. And it is creepy. It has a great atmosphere, this movie. It's not like Ghoulies, where it does have a good, little gothic, satanic atmosphere, but it's a little more ridiculous with the look of the Ghoulies and how they act. The critters, I think, are scarier. The original Ghoulies and this film have very good pacing, and it really gives you time to care about the characters and just get into the story and set it up. Now, I'm sure in the sequels, just like in most sequels, since you don't have to set anything up, I'm sure they're going to jump right into the critters causing havoc immediately, 10 minutes, 15 minutes into the movie. Could be wrong, but that's usually how it goes with these type of movies when it comes to sequels. Then we get the always goddamn stupid jump scare with the person right silently behind you, and they don't say a word or anything, creep up on your ass and scare the living hell out of you. I can't stand that in any movie. I don't mean to keep comparing both theories, but just like Ghoulies, in the original, the basement of the house that Jonathan inherits that's where the real atmosphere is, just because of all the occult stuff everywhere. The basement in this film has a great atmosphere too. It's spooky. When they first see the I'm going to do that a lot throughout this series. When the father first sees the critter, and again, they're so much more terrifying than the ghoulies. Love the way it looks. The other one jumps on him, starts trying to bite him. You see the size of these things. I forgot exactly how small they are. There's no goddamn way they're piloting a spaceship. I'm sorry. I mean, that's just too much for me to suspend disbelief for. Plus, they got sharp-ass claws. I'm not a woman or someone who's into that, but I've never worn long-ass tip, fake nails. But you try piloting a spaceship with that on, and I guarantee you it's not going to end well. So then the police car that's abandoned, that Ugg and Lee show up upon the scene. One of them has the green face again. I mean, they're in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's not like they're going to easily be seen. But wouldn't you never want to take a chance on that, of having a glowing green face where you can be seen? Especially at the scene of a crashed police car that I'm sure they're onto, right? They've heard about it. I'm sure that's going to be discovered soon. You probably want to keep that face on, the regular, normal human face, at all times. But not sure if it's Ugg or Lee, but Ugg or Lee isn't the most intelligent hitman. Then the older daughter, what's her name? April. And her boyfriend are in the barn and in the hay. Roll, roll, roll in the hay. Steve gets killed, the boyfriend. The effects look cool in this. It's not over the top with gore, the kills, or anything like that. It's effective. It looks good. And the family rushes in. She says Steve's dead. But before that, the critter willingly picks up a firework or firecracker that Brad lights and throws on the floor. He looks at it, this critter. He sees something that's sparkling on fire. And he willingly puts it in his mouth. The critters aren't too intelligent, is my point. Yeah, sure, now they don't have the green faces on when they burst into a funeral. These critters are stupid enough to eat a lit firecracker, but they're smart enough to fly a spaceship. And they're smart enough to disable and fuck with a car, multiple cars, in order to, stop the family from being able to travel and get stuck in their home. Okay, this makes sense. So the bounty hunters, one of them can take the form of, other townspeople. Like, he takes the form of the mentally ill, but not mentally ill, drunk Charlie, and that's a really cool idea. I love how they're trying to figure out, the family, what these things are, and Brad says it's like Charlie says, they're from outer space. And then he says a great line where he says maybe there's some, result of some type of genetic experiment or scientific experiment, and they used to be gophers but got zapped by some radioactive and gets cut off. It wasn't any gopher. Oh, I love the fact that they turn into Sonic the Hedgehog and roll up into a bowl and roll around. Totally forgot about that. Let me say this. I think out of all the mini creature films from the 80s, I think this film does the best job of not showing the critters too much. We see them a decent amount, don't get me wrong. But we don't see them too much, where it takes away the creepiness and effectiveness of how creepy and scary these things can be, and just terrifying with their teeth and claws and the way that they roll around like Sonic. They did a very good job. Now, I don't know how much of this is because of budget, but this is a $3 million budget film by New Line Cinema. So I'm sure it didn't have to do with that. I'm sure it was a conscious decision. And compared to Gremlins and Hobgoblins and Munchies and even Ghoulies, you don't see the critters in your face too much in this film. And it retains that spooky element for it. That's a great decision here. Another great, hilarious scene at the bowling alley with the two hitmen. when they come in and they look ridiculous because they're dressed completely just outside of any type of fashion that anyone has seen on planet Earth. And I love the fact that they walk in and then he gets startled because of the TV. He hears gunshots and he turns, he blows the TV away, and everyone's freaking out. And they end up running out of the bowling alley. All of that is hilarious. See, they do shoot little quills out of them. Great touch also. It looks cool when she gets shot in the neck with the quill. Looks like it's a reverse shot. Like, shot her with it in her neck and then reversed it and had it come out of a critter. That's my best guess is. That's the way it looks. But it looks really good. So young Brad, fuck Brad and anybody who looks like Brad. So young Brad ends up meeting and running into the hitmen, and they try to take out the critters for good. And the critters, the remaining ones, end up taking the sister, I forget, April, hostage somehow, and take her back to their spaceship, which looks cool. But then, like, Brad's plan is to use, what is with the firecrackers in this movie? What, it could solve world hunger. It could solve any issue in the world. Firecrackers, that's all you need. This kid's solution to everything is just blowing it up with a firecracker. It's a firecracker, I don't care how big it is. It's going to blow up a goddamn spaceship? I don't think so. That explains it, maybe. Is that a big critter at the end? Are there big critters? Like I said, not my series. Because it looks like a big thing is carrying April away, with the small critters, like, helping, I guess. But it's a very dark shot. I can't tell. It's not a person. It looks like Bigfoot. You'd think they'd be content and, more than comfortable traveling around in something like maybe the size of a blimp at most. I mean, whatever. And it is a big critter, which now makes more sense for the ship. But I mean, I've only seen one so far, and he's, the size of like Bigfoot, maybe a little smaller, size of at least 6-7 foot human being. I've only seen one. That motherfucker can definitely fit in a blimp. Why do the critters need such a big spaceship? You see how small they are. The ramp alone looks like you can fit maybe 24 critters on the ramp, let alone the spaceship. Seems like they'd be comfortable in, like, I don't know, maybe something the size of like a large drone. But this has nothing to do with anything. Then they have the plan and they blow up the spaceship by, he throws the big stupid firecracker onto the spaceship. And again, I don't care. It's not even that big of a firecracker. It's big, don't get me wrong. It's maybe like that big, that type of girth. But it's not blowing up a spaceship. Charlie, the lunatic, who's not a lunatic, he ends up taking a Molotov cocktail and throws it in, which fucking makes the firecracker blow up and blows up the spaceship. I think the Molotov cocktail does more damage than the firecracker. Oh, and right before that, when they're taking off, before the ship explodes, they blow up the farmhouse of the Browns. Which, I mean, damn, man. Talk about rubbing shit in before you make your epic getaway. Maybe I'm confused. It doesn't matter with the spaceship size, but I can't get past it. Maybe I'm confusing with the spaceship that the hitman fly around space with. But I saw the shot of the ramp with the critters when they're dragging April on, and I'm telling you, it's a big ship. Too big for a critter. So then Charlie, the drunk, ends up joining the hitmen, and he's going to go around trying to exterminate critters and gives them, like, their contact information. They don't have business cards, but they end up giving their information just in case there's another, infestation of critters sometime. Then we just have, I don't know about this, but the farmhouse that exploded into oblivion, I guess it's the hitmen, right? End up making it rebuild itself back into perfect condition. All reverse shots, of course, they blew up the house and destroyed it, reversed it. Looks very good though. Like, all the stuff, all the effects work looks very good to this day in this movie. Then we just get a little pan in on the barn, and we see that there are critter
Let me
eggs.
say this.
And this was a
Sets
fucking
up the
blast.
sequel,
I guess, very, very
Of
well.
a rewatch. Let me say this.
This was a fucking blast of a rewatch. For a movie I haven't seen in, like I said, a decade at least, if not longer, I forgot how good this movie is. Yeah, there's stupid shit in it from time to time. This stuff like I always nitpick and make fun of because it's just ridiculous. It could have been written a little better. But for the most part, the atmosphere, the comedy works for me. The performances are good. The characters are very likable. The firecrack is ridiculously dumb. The look of the critters, the fact that they don't show them off too much. Even the big critter, they make it a point to not show him that much. At first, you see a lot of just like from his torso down. I like that decision. This was a great, great rewatch. It's not a favorite still. It's not something I'd watch often, meaning like every year or other year, but definitely a fun movie. A creepy movie at times with a great atmosphere. So that's Critters from 1986. This was a blast. And they end up causing havoc. No. And they end up, if not, they're wasting a whole bunch of fucking. Then we meet one of those nutbags that only one of those nutcases who wanders nameless. That's kind of fucking stupid. If not, Brad should be going to prison. If not, Brad belongs in prison because he's a goddamn thief. If not, but they're on their way and they're arriving in Earth. But they're on their way, arriving at Earth. But they're on their way, arriving on Earth. I love the look of the ghoul. The critters kind of have just the stink of everlasting cow manure. As stupid as the ever-loving. So young Brad meets up with the hitmen, and they end up. Maybe I'm confusing the spaceship with the hitmen that they drive around space. Alright, boys and ghouls. So, continuing with the Critters series, Critters 2, the main course from 1988. Now, I don't remember this movie at all. Like the first movie that I barely remembered. But I had a blast rewatching the first Critters. Like, that was a great, great rewatch. And I like how they kept the critters out of the spotlight for a lot of it. It made them creepy. Now, this is the directorial debut of Mick Garris, who he's written some amazing stuff, like most notably for me, Hocus Pocus, which is just a nostalgia-ridden, just amazing film for me that I watch every single year. And I think a lot of people just adore that film. So, just with that, and this was co-written by David Twohy, who went on to do The Fugitive and The Perfect Getaway. I did recently, it's a lot of movies. So this gives me a little bit of hope. Now, I don't know where this takes place or what the plot for this movie is in any shape or form at all. I don't know if it's a continuation of the first movie, because at the end of the first film, we see eggs, like critter eggs, in the farm, like the farmhouse, and they start to hatch. So does it take place in the same town and they're running amok all over the place? I don't know. We're going to find out. So let's talk Critters 2 from 1988. The year I was born. Great year. Already a good start. But Garris is... he's not like a director, like I said, that I love or anything like that. He doesn't have too many movies under his belt directing-wise, but he directed Batteries Not Included from like the year or two before this, if I recall. That's all right. It's not a great movie or anything. And then he wrote Hocus Pocus. He wrote this and directed this. Then he directed Sleepwalkers, which I haven't seen in forever, but that's a decent one. And then after that, Nightmare Cinema is the most recent one. I know that. That was all right. Besides that, he hasn't really done a lot for me to like praise Garris as a director or anything like that. He is a great writer, though. I'll say that. All right, like here's a good analogy. Maybe. I feel like Garris is more of a horror figure in the horror community, like as a whole, the whole horror community. that get you see him and hear him talk in interviews and at conventions and stuff more than he's made movies and worked on films. If that makes any sense. Like, he has a podcast, I think, for forever now, and he has a lot of guest roles in movies. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, Mick Garris it seems like the nicest guy ever too. But I feel, yeah, he's not like a director I can say, oh, Mick Garris, yeah, great director. He's good, but I wish we had more from him, honestly, after like all these decades. I don't know which movie is the one where the critters just go ape shit and like aren't scary anymore, and they grow, or they talk, or God forbid, I don't know. I'm excited to find out. A little scared, but excited. But with Mick Garris writing, co-writing and directing here, I have a feeling this is going to be like the Ghoulies 2 of the franchise, where it's still good, but it's a lot more ridiculous. Like, that's my prediction for this one. Off the bat, love the title card. How it just says Critters 2, and then you hear and it gets eaten away. Cool title card. We have the Chiodo brothers, who did the effects and puppetry and stuff for the first Critters, returning here. And this is a direct continuation, which I really like that. Like, you guys know, continuity is a big thing for me. So I love when and it's the same actor. I just said it. I don't remember who plays Brad. Fuck Brad and everybody who looks like Brad. He got accepted into dental school. Yeah, in the Philippines after 4 tries. But he's now 15 years old, and he's going to visit his grandma. And before this, we see Ugg and Lee again. So they're back, the shape-shifting hitmen from the first movie. And then they talk to this awesome looking, like, I guess he's like the head alien dude. The way that his design is, that looks great. He ends up telling them the critters are detected on Earth again. This is 2 years after the events of the first movie, and they have to go check it out and exterminate them. So I'm glad right off the bat that it's a continuation directly from the first film. Brad's riding the bus to his grandma's, and I like that the bus driver calls them, because he says, you ever hear these space porcupines? That's great, because in the first movie they shoot the quills, the needles out of them. Space porcupines is a great nickname for the critters. I hope they use that more often. It's not just this guy's one-time usage, and that they came down from UFOs and stuff. So, like, I guess it was a big story from the first movie. How can it not be? So I guess people know who he is. All right, we got the great Lin Shaye back in the same role as Sally. So this is great so far. I'm really enjoying the setup for this second film. Let's just hope it doesn't nosedive or some shit into just like weird terribleness. So yeah, they all know this guy. They all know Bradley Brown, and I love that Sally says the boy who cried critter. So everybody knows this person. But weren't they from the same place? Like, we see them in the movie in the first one. They don't believe him. Like, people believe him, right? Like, please tell me people believe this kid, because there was a lot of chaos and havoc by the critters. So don't tell me they're all looking at him like he's crazy or some shit. So yeah, they all think he's crazy, which I don't know how I feel about that. So Bradley, I'll call him Bradley now because he's a little older. Brad when he's younger, Bradley now. It's like Pokemon evolution. So Bradley ends up at his grandma's place, which is a daycare center. So she runs his daycare center. Good for her. I mean, she's looks like she's pushing 70-ish or something like that. She's got a lot of kids in there. Then we get a fucking dog jump scare. God damn it. I hate animal jump scares. Critters 2, you were doing so well so far. So Sal, Lin Shaye's character, ends up going to, they even have the sheriff, but it's not the same actor, right? Because this guy looks totally different. He looks familiar, this actor. It's not the same as the first one. He goes asking him for help, saying that Bradley's back in town and you know about the critter situation. He's like, why the hell would I come at do anything to do with these critters again? Then she leaves, and he says pretty much, fuck you, get away, I'm not helping. So then we got like this crazy guy who like runs an underground like alcohol for teens and Playboy black market ring. It seems like, and this teenager's there, and he's saying that he wanted Meister Brew, and he says, I ain't got no Meister Brew. And this guy's not very good at his job either. This this black market dealer, because he just lets the seller dictate everything to him. He's like, oh, it's not Meister Brew. I'm taking 2 of these, and I'm taking some of these Playboys. And then he just says, teenagers. Nah, yo. As soon as he says, I'm taking 2 of these, you're like, no, you're taking 1 of these. And whatever, it doesn't have to do with anything. But he also has critter eggs. And he says, what am I going to do with all these? So where did he get them? Do they explain that? And we see Ugg and Lee in the spaceship with Charlie, the crazy but not crazy alcoholic from the first movie that went with them at the end to travel around the universe and shit. I like that they brought him back. Like, this is a very good, very well written setup for a sequel to the first film. This is very good so far. So I'm just praying it stays at some type of consistent level like this. But the writing is great so far to set this premise up 15 minutes into the movie. And Charlie, man, he must be having a blast. Like, he has to travel zipping around the galaxies and stuff with 2 alien hitmen for 2 years straight. And he asks them, like, you wouldn't just leave me on Earth, right? Because they're heading back to Earth. And he says he misses this one friend of his. And they say, yeah, Brad, which is now Bradley. So I'm sure they're going to leave his ass on Earth, right? At the end of this movie for some reason. But what an opportunity. Like I say all the time, if a UFO came down, I would jump right on there. Take me zipping around, get me off this piece of shit rock. So this guy's been having the most fun out of anyone in the cast of the original film and so far in this movie. I mean, I'm sure he was a huge alcoholic. So I'm sure the DTs and withdrawal and stuff wasn't fun for the first few days up there. But they're space aliens, so I'm sure they have a way to detox them fast. So that teenager earlier who bought stole pretty much the 2 things of beer, 2 cases of beer, the Playboys. He's kind of seeing this girl Megan, but like, I don't know, she doesn't want anything to do with him really. And they're at a place called the Hungry Heifer, which is just a great name. I'd eat there. But then he starts getting pushy, Wesley, with the girl. And Brad comes and he's putting up his hands, putting his dukes up. And he's like, I don't want to, but like, just stop it, just cool it. I like the whole chemistry we get because Megan ends up driving Bradley away after that altercation with Wesley. And they end up talking, and she reminds him that they went to school together. And he says, does your father still run the paper? And she says, yeah, I'm a reporter there. And first of all, why is so many goddamn movies? It's not even just horror, but there's so many movies where the main character or side character is a journalist or a reporter. We've seen so much of that. Like, can we not have that in movies ever again? But she's a reporter. And then he says, oh, that's cool. Like Jimmy Olsen with breasts. And she looks at him like confused and like, you just said that? That's a great joke. See, again, this guy, his name is Len, the black market dealer. He sucks at his job because the grandma of Brad comes in with the little girl, her name's Cindy, and she wants the eggs. She says they're Easter eggs, and he says he got them from Europe. So I don't know if they do explain later on where he actually found them, but he doesn't want to say where. He just makes up a place, Europe. So yeah, of course it comes from over there with you Brits. But he starts saying, she says how much you want for them. He says $10 a piece. He's got, I don't know, 2 dozen at least in the basket, maybe more. So he says $10 a piece, and she's like, no, that's not what you're going to ask the church, right? He goes, no, of course not. So she says $20 for the whole basket. And he says, no, he says 25 for half the basket. She says 20 for half the basket, and he agrees. This guy, she's a great negotiator. He's terrible. So they should switch professions. She should be a negotiator, and he should probably not run a daycare. All right, so this movie takes place either on or right, like leading up to Easter. So I never knew that. So this is a little Easter horror film. But then she ends up giving one of the eggs and a delicious looking chocolate bunny to Cindy, the little girl. So that's not a good move. I'm all for eating and killing kids, but only if they're bad kids that have killed or done something extremely wrong. Not innocent little Cindy here. This guy Len, like I said, he is not a good black market dealer. Yeah, a black dealer. He deals blacks. That's what Len does. He's not a good black market dealer because he gets killed immediately on top of all that stuff I said earlier. But the critters in this movie and the effects look great. so far. Like they look really good. You see the critters much more right in the scene here. Like you see them with the glowing red eyes. You see a bunch of them. And the puppet work is great. They even have a little because the kills weren't too memorable in the first movie, and the attacks and it wasn't really had any gore or anything like that. You see this guy's it's and that's something you don't see often. Like you see limbs get bitten off, but you don't see the tip of his foot, like his shoe, get bitten off by a critter. And then they're in all ball shape, like Sonic the Hedgehog, and they're on top of him. That was a cool scene and great puppet work. The fuck is wrong with this kid, Cindy? I said she was innocent and a cute kid earlier, but she kept the chocolate bunny for the rest of this night, and then she puts it on the floor and goes to bed. What's wrong with her? What an evil thing to do, to get a gift chocolate from your nana or whatever she is to her, and then just let it melt overnight to nothingness. So yeah, feel free to punt the shit out of Cindy too. Remember I said it's usually only killer kids and crimes that are that high up. That's one of those crimes. That's funny. So Cindy's getting ready for bed, and the critter egg. I like how you get a little POV shot of the baby critter. You don't see it, but it comes and starts like crittering around the floor to her bed, and it looks like it's about to like try to attack her or jump up to her. And the dad comes in and squishes the shit out of it. And then he pulls his foot up, and it's like this gooey green stuff, and he thinks it's just the Easter egg, like stuff inside the Easter egg. He says it sure makes a lot of mess here, Easter candy. That's funny. So Bradley's grandma and all the kids at I mean, it says daycare, but it seems like they're with her all the time, like they reside there. So it feels more like an orphanage than it feels like a daycare. But they're doing an Easter egg hunt. It is Easter, it's on Easter Day. And we see some of the eggs, the critter eggs, that they hatch. So now, let me say this. This is the first like half hour of this movie. Great in almost every way better than the original for me. Upon my, watch of that one, I'm loving everything for the most part in this first act of the movie. So I'm hoping as long as it stays with the style of like and the tone in that scene with Len, the terrible black dealer, when he gets killed, and the effects and the puppetry, how good that looks and everything. If it keeps that same semi-serious tone, like not complete insanity, this might be my favorite over the first one. I don't want to jinx it, but too damn late. As soon as I said that comment of hope it doesn't get like insane, we get this insane scene, but in a great way. Like I was laughing my ass off at this. But there is a nitpick, a small one at the end of this little side note we're going on here, like always. There's a guy. He's one hell of a method actor. He's dressed up like the Easter Bunny, and he's actually hopping around and stuff like that. And then critters, he seizes one of the eggs, that hatched already on the ground, and some of the critters jump through the back of the bunny suit into his suit. So he starts like, oh no. And then I thought it was just going to end like that. And I was like, that's kind of a stupid kill. Then I'm glad because then they're in church. Everybody, Brad, the whole town, and the Easter Bunny dude in the suit comes crashing through the window, and everyone's freaking out. And then you see his body land, and there's blood and stuff and holes in him, kind of. It looks good. Then it cuts to the next scene, and they're all outside trying to figure out what happened. Where'd the critters go? Like, that's the nitpick. Where'd they go after that? They were inside of his suit, eating away at him. And then he jumped through the window with them in his suit. And then no one saw critters. They're pretty decent size. They're like big balls, maybe, like that. Nobody saw them, like, escape from the bunny suit. I don't know about that. Like, where did they go, is my point. Hilarious and great scene. This is like what I thought, like with Ghoulies too. But this is even better. Quality-wise and serious, like, tone-wise, this is much better so far. But this is like I said with Ghoulies too. It's just a little more up the ante on the craziness. But you can still have fun with this. Like, absolute blast with this movie so far. I don't know how the rest are. But we'll find out as time goes on. It's also funny as hell that Ugg and Lee, the hitmen aliens with Charlie, they finally make it to Earth. And Lee or Ugg, I forget which one. I think Ugg is still the rock star, Johnny Steele from the first movie, which is great. But the other one, then they call him a no face, and he's got to stay a no face until he finds like a suitable body. Disguise. That's great. And then they end up on Earth, and Charlie finds one of the Playboys that fell off like Wesley's truck or out of his car earlier. And he says, "Oh, these are great, like good for reading, good articles," which is hilarious in its own right. And then Lee ends up turning into like the centerfold model from the Playboy. And what a great sequence we get at when he transforms into her. Like she's a Playboy model. So like you see her like his ass like turning and like molding into like a beautiful woman's ass. The tits come out and everything. It's very creative. So let me give a shout out again to the Chiodo brothers for the effects done in this movie. Like not just the puppetry, that's a great scene when he's transforming into this Playboy girl. Do you think it's weird for Ugg now that Lee is like a gorgeous Playboy model? Like he's used to him in like a male form. So do you think that he's thinking about, maybe I could fuck Lee tonight, or maybe they're so advanced they don't have sex, they don't procreate, they don't have sexual pleasure, and so this has nothing to do with Brad, Megan, and Sally are together, and they're trying to figure out what they're gonna do to stop the critter invasion again this time. And I love that he says to Megan, "Who are you gonna call? Critter Busters?" That's funny too, man. This scene here is excellent, like excellently executed. When the three of them go look for Mr. Quigley, all the puppet work, all the effects work in this scene, top tier. And I mean, of course, it's Chiodo Brothers. They always do a great job, but it looks so good. We see Mr. Quigley's body fall out of the house and like it's like a mini jump scare on Bradley, and his eyes gouged out and he's all eaten up. He falls to the ground, and then the critters are there. And there are bigger ones and stuff, but they look scary still. They look intimidating. They don't look like the ghoulies and like gremlins and stuff where they don't look intimidating in the slightest. They still look very good. And they're flinging themselves like Sonic and little balls at the car. One of them gets inside the car and he ends up biting on the tire. And then as they drive away, it like ends up spinning and crushing his head. That's hilarious. And what a great little detail to throw in there. Like they didn't have to put that effect in, but it works like very, very well. The eyes look great on the critters. They're shooting the darts, not darts, quills, the porcupine needle things they have at the car, and cool reverse shots. So I'm guessing that's how they did it. You see the quills hitting the car. What a great scene. Like this is better than anything I saw in the first movie, honestly. Especially when it comes to the puppets and effects work. Oh, then we get the beautiful reuniting of Brad and Charlie. When the hitmen, Ugg and Lee, show up with Charlie and they all meet up. So now the whole group's together. And he gets saying, I get Bradley, and they get to reunite. It's great. It's sweet. It's cute. It's lovable. I like it. I'm sorry. There's no way Ugg is walking around Lee, that he's probably known forever, looking like this model and not had just even a slight tingle or thought about trying to fuck her. There's no way. I had some mixed feelings with this scene here, but now that I'm thinking about it, and again because of the effects work, it's great. Like I have issues, but it's still in that realm of just entertaining, over the top, but in a good way, a fun way, and not a terrible way like Ghoulies Goes to College or that level of stupidity. So the hitmen Ugg and Lee go into this restaurant or something, and all the critters there. And again, they look fantastic with the teeth and everything. One of them they start blasting the hell out of all these critters. And just the effects of them exploding into green shit, blood and guts, that looks cool. Then they go, uh-oh. So I don't like that. Like, do they talk in later ones? Like, do they talk in the first one and I completely missed it? I really don't think so. But I just don't like the idea of these little creatures in any little creature movies talking. Unless, like, there's a damn good reason for it. Not with them, and I don't like that. But the effects of the other one getting knocked into the fryer and he comes out and all the fur is gone. That looks excellent. And then the other one gets the top of his head blown off, like, but it's only like his hair, like the fur on the top of his head. So then he looks in the mirror and he says, "Bitchin'." So that's dumb. But then, but all of it works like very, very well. An actual smart decision. The father of Megan, pretty sure it was him, right? Ends up calling and saying that send the state police. So I like that they threw that in there. At least they're thinking rationally. He gets a quill shot into his neck. That looks pretty cool. Apparently, getting hit with the quill from them knocks you out because they're carrying his ass. We get a nice little poster of Freddy Krueger behind Charlie when they're trying to hunt the Krites at night. That's cool. And then we have, yeah, it was Lee, the one who turns into the model. She's going, he, whatever, is going through some stuff, like dealing with something, that like she ends up transforming into like this goofy guy who worked at the Hungry Heifer and is him for a while, but then ends up they try to get him to turn back as the model, and it does, and then it starts killing critters again. I don't know. I don't care for any of that. Then that's who Harv, right? The former sheriff. He comes and he quick draw McGraws and shoots like 7 of the critters and saves Bradley and Megan. But like, how come in the scene? I get it. The hitman Ugg and Lee are using big ass like rocket launches almost, and they're exploding with the green stuff everywhere. But he's shooting all of them. Like, it's not even a single like splatter of green blood or anything like that. See, in any other movie, this would not work for me. The plan they devise is a town. Let's get them into Polar Burger, a hamburger factory. But it works here because they're hungry. They need to eat. That's all they do. And they eat meat. So to trap them in a burger place, it's a pretty damn good idea. But it wouldn't work for me in any other movie, really, or any other context. It would be stupid. But this just makes sense for the movie. You see the shots of the critters eating the cows. That looks fantastic too. Let me say this: the puppet work in this movie is absolutely phenomenal. Like, it is so well done. All the puppetry in this film, better than any of the other. I mean, I don't want to say better than Rick Baker's work in Gremlins 2, but for all these little creature films, it's some of the best, if not the best, like puppet work for the creatures that I've ever seen. And the way that the effects on the dead cow look great too. How it's almost a skeleton because they've eaten most of it. As much as I said it's a great plan, and Brad came up with it, so good thinking, Brad. Now I really feel like a hamburger, like a cheeseburger, baconator, or something like that. So now I'm pissed, and that's evil. So now you could throw Brad onto the list, and you could feel free to kick his ass too. So after more great effects work and critters causing havoc, they trap him into the burger place, and it blows up. They blow it up and they prematurely celebrate, thinking it's over. And this I do remember. I mean, this is iconic. The giant critter ball. It's right above me. It's on the poster. I remember this from Blockbuster, seeing this on the poster. So I always remember the critter ball, but I don't remember seeing it like in forever. So it looks great. Like some of the shots of it, like rotating, like as it goes down the street, and you see the little critters opening their mouths. So good. Some of it gets a little stupid. Like, they're driving the truck. Brad, he's trying to cut off the critter ball before it hits the church where the orphanage is. And it starts turning, like the critter ball knows how to turn. How do they coordinate that? How do they make it turn? But then, hilarious scene and great way that they're taken out is Charlie's flying the spaceship, and he screams, he kamikaze bombs into the critter ball before it hits the orphanage slash daycare slash church. And he screams out, "I'm a bounty hunter." And then boom, crashes, explodes. All the critters are dead, and all is well until. So Ugg is getting ready to take off and go back into space. And then we find out Charlie's alive. He ended up, yeah, I mean, shooting out of the spaceship at the last moment, I guess, with a parachute. And he ends up surviving. Ugg is wearing Charlie as a disguise. So they both looked exactly the same. They're both Charlie. And then Charlie stays behind and becomes the sheriff. But the way it happens, there's no fucking way. I mean, the sheriff just takes his badge and just tosses it to Charlie. So you're the new sheriff now, or something like that. That's not how that works. There's a lot of paperwork and stuff like that. There's no way this guy just becomes a sheriff like this. But what a great ending. Let me say this now. This rewatch of a film I haven't seen in forever, out of at least 700, 800 movies I've talked about on this channel, this is one of the best rewatches of an 80s horror film for me that I haven't seen in a while. This was just so much fun. This was such a great rewatch. I love all the characters in this. Like, you get to care about them more in this movie than the first movie for sure. All the puppetry and effects work I can't praise enough. Like I said a few times, it looks excellent. It's not over the top ridiculous most of the time. Like, this is nowhere near Ghoulies 2 ridiculous, or Gremlins 2 at all. Like, this is definitely the more serious sequel out of those three movies, and I really like that. The critters look scary at times, and then when they don't, they look ridiculous, but it looks great the way that it's pulled off. I like the story. I like just some of the cute little things that are thrown in here. Yeah, this is just such a great sequel to a good first film that I've had a great time watching that one. So I'm hoping it continues a little. I've heard that it doesn't, that it kind of crashes after this film with the third movie, but it's Leonardo DiCaprio's first role. So that's the only thing I remember from ever seeing that film as a kid. Let's see Critters 3 from 1991. Now, this is direct-to-video, which, for some reason, all these tiny killer creature movies, after the second one, they all go direct-to-video. Gremlins, luckily, they didn't have one after the second one, so they didn't have one to go to direct-to-video. But we have Don Opper back in here, so I guess this is just his franchise, right? Charlie, the guy, the drunk, who then became a hitman, and then he became the sheriff in the last movie of Grover's Bend. So I'm real excited to find out, and I hope they pay attention to it, of how he became the sheriff, haphazardly and very quickly, as I might add. As I said in the last video, sheriff just throws him the badge, you're the new sheriff, and then that's just how it works, no paperwork. But now he's in Los Angeles, so I hope they explain like why he gave up a sheriff job in Grover's Bend to move to Los Angeles, but they're probably not going to, right? So we end up opening on the road. It's a nice day. Sound of bird chirping in the air. And we see a car come down that road. It's all very thrilling so far. Then we see this family in the car. They're singing in a Broken Candy Mountain, like terribly in the, you know, like the call response way when you're on like a road trip. Dun, 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 hey, and then it's bad, it's terrible, whatever. But we got a father and his two kids. His daughter looks like a teenager or so, and a younger boy. No Leo DiCaprio yet, and they get a flat tire. Now, the director of this, Christine Peterson or something like that, they said the screenplay was co-written by, I forget his name, but I'm pretty sure he's the one who directed the next one, Critters 4. So he had some play in the writing in this movie and then took over directing for the next one. So let's see how his writing fits for this one. Because trust me, having the sound of birds in the air with a family singing Broken Candy Mountain while driving down the road is not the way I'd open my Critters 3. I was waiting for the how their mother died, which was obviously coming. And yeah, their mom died 2 years ago. Alright, so the teenage girl is, or whatever age she is Annie. Then Johnny's the little boy. And then Cliff, or Clifford, is the father's name. And then we get Leo DiCaprio, Lil Leo. Man, he looks so young. But he still got it, man. Like, he's delivering his lines, like, pretty damn well for this. I can pretty much predict now Leonardo DiCaprio is going to be one of, if not the biggest takeaway and positive from this film. But then we have our friend show up, Charlie, and he ends up warning all the kids about the critters. Even Leo's mannerisms and his facial expressions are great, man. And so they're playing Frisbee, and then the Frisbee gets lost in the woods. So Lil Leo, Josh, his character, I'm just going to call him Lil Leo. Why not? You don't get to call him that often. So Lil Leo ends up trying to, like, show off, you know, I'm a big shot. I got this. I'm going to get this Frisbee. And then they get the shit scared out of them from Charlie, who just comes out of nowhere. And instead of them being frightened from the potential, like, drunk meth head who just stumbled upon them in the woods and is telling them, like, all creepily, and looks like he's on a bender, which he tells the kids about the critters, by the way, with an entire, 3-minute flashback of the events of the first two movies. Which I hope they don't use a lot of, clips from the first two movies in this one, and it turns into it'll never be as bad as Puppet Master The Legacy. The whole movie's a goddamn clip show. But it made me think, and I mentioned this in the premiere of Critters 2, it took me way too long after two Critters films to put together the Hitmen, Ugly. Come on, y'all. That took me way too long. 2 films. And I had to hear myself talking about it in the Critters 2 video to say, are you fucking kidding me? Ugly? You didn't get that? So, I think something happened to Lee, right? At the end of the last one, there was some weird shit going on with her, him, whatever you want to call it. But Ugg got away. Ugg left the planet. So, hopefully we get half of Ugly. And I'm pissed I missed this line from the second movie, because in the little clip reel we see here, he says, when he's explaining about how he wants to be a bounty hunter and that he's someone up in space as a hitman and he's no one on Earth, he says, I gotta go where the cosmic winds will blow me. And I didn't pick that up last time. I'm so mad at myself. Yep, just like I thought. That whole 3-minute clip show that was not real fun to sit through, Leonardo ends it with a brilliant line. Just saying, you don't expect us to believe this horse shit, do you? That made it worth it. I told you, Lil Leo's gonna carry this movie. I do gotta say, though, Opper, as Charlie, his character in these movies, I really like him. I feel like this is a very underrated protagonist or / leader of a franchise. Charlie's character here. You never hear him brought up. And that's why I totally forgot about him, because nobody ever mentions him. But he's a very lovable guy. I mean, he went from a bad alcoholic in the first movie to doing good things for the human race, for trying to exterminate the critters. And he's trying to help these kids. Now there's crystals that came out of nowhere that he says friends of his from far off. So, I'm guessing it's Ugg. But it could be any of the aliens. Who knows what he's run into all his time in space. They give him a crystal, and so he says, I only have a few left. And he gives it to Johnny, the little kid. And he says, when this turns green, that's when you have to watch out for you and your family. So now they have critter detection crystals for when there's a nearby invasion. That's cool, I guess. So they say goodbye to Charlie, and then again, little Leo kills it. Says, give my regards to Mars. Fantastic. So then we find out that little Leo is the son of this crooked landlord, some douchebag. Told you, Matt. And Charlie ended up dropping what little Leo describes as like a homemade bullet, and so he holds on to that for sure. Then we see a critter. We don't see it. It's all from POV shots. So I wonder how much of the critters are actually going to see in this movie. Running under the family's car, and it'll put some eggs there. And then they drive off not knowing critter eggs are there. And they end up getting a first-class trip to the destination the family's going to, Los Angeles, to this apartment building. Let me just say this, too, as a parent. This teenage girl, right before they leave, where the tire broke down and they met Lil Leo and Charlie and everything, she says, Dad, listen, you gotta hear this. There's this strange guy in the woods. And the father cuts her off and says, I don't want to hear it. All right, I told you to stay... When your teenage girl is telling you there's a strange dude she saw in the woods, you're going to want to hear the rest of that story out. Now we're in Los Angeles, and we literally get introduced to Los Angeles by seeing a guy carry a fish in a fish bowl in real time for about 2 minutes. There's this guy named Mario, and you take one look at this guy, it looks just like Mario. If you had a guess the name competition, and you said, look at this guy and guess the name, the first thought would be Mario. And that's his name. And that took a lot longer than I ever anticipated to get that out. However, that's Mario, and that's not the guy with the fishbowl we've been following. That would be Frank. So then Fishbowl ends up going down to the basement, and he put the fishbowl down a little bit ago, but he carried that a long-ass while. He goes down to this cellar, and he sees the critter eggs have hatched, but he don't know what they are yet, obviously. But he's touching them. He puts his finger and he smells it. He's it's disgusting. And then this other garbage guy outside finds the egg too. He's looking at it. But then I guess they just carry on with their day, right? They don't ask any more questions. Oh, that's Frances Bay, the grandma here, or whoever the hell she is to them. from Seinfeld with the marble rye. She's Mrs. Tremont or Chalfont, whatever, in Twin Peaks. She's been in a million things. Great to see her. I don't get to see her often because she's been dead as shit for a long while now, right? Mrs. Mengies, and the same with the husband. I don't know how they're related. I'm guessing they're relatives. I'm going to guess they're grandparents. If they said it, I missed it. But apparently the kid's father, Clifford, he's just driving them here. He's going home, like, the next morning. So I wonder if he gets to catch Critters 3 in action or if he misses it completely. So we're about a half hour into an hour and 20 minute and change film on a direct-to-video third installment of a franchise. We need Critters now. Like, we need Critters doing shit right now for this to be worth it in any way. Because they fuck with you a bit with the egg earlier and with the point of view when the critter puts the egg on the family's car, but you don't see any havoc being run amok by these critters. And then the douchebag with the fishbowl, he has rats for pets, which figures. And then he hears a noise in his vent, and he goes and looks through it, and you could clearly see a critter's glowing big-ass red eyes. And he thinks it's just a rat of his and tells it to go upstairs. And it listens, and it goes upstairs. We need critter action now. Never thought I'd see the day, but we get a hot sneaker jump scare. Frank, the douchebag, it's trying to be tense with him in the basement, and you hear critter sounds, and he opens the washing machine, or the dryer. And he sticks his hand in, he goes, ow, ow, and then he pulls out a sneaker, and he goes back and forth with it like it's too hot. I've never seen a hot sneaker jump scare in a horror movie before. So there's some points for this movie. So finally something happens, and the critter jumps out and starts, attacking, biting this guy on his side here. And then he pulls out a screwdriver and stabs him, and it's a cool shot because you see his blood like splatter on the ground, and then when he stabs the critter, the green blood they have splatters on top of the splatter of him. That looks pretty cool. And then another one rolls like Sonic his way, makes his entrance, they attack him, and then weird editing to stop that. You see the ball going, a critter is a ball, and then you just see it cut to a shot of a critter's mouth opening, and then it cuts to the next scene. The editing is strange. But I mean, the scene as a whole is not great either. So then little Leo, his stepdad and him are driving at night, and he calls the guy who just got killed, Frank, fishbowl douchebag, and the critter answers. And the puppetry still looks alright. Like, we definitely don't see as many critters at this point, but it still looks good. It's nothing like Ghoulies 3 Ghoulies Go to College, where I took one look at how big the Ghoulies are and how weird they look and said, what the hell did they do? Like, the critters still look like critters here, so I'm fine with the puppets. The puppetry looks fine. But critters know how to answer phones apparently now. And he's having this whole argument thinking it's the guy Frank, and he's saying, fine, then I'm just going to come over and your ass is fired. You have no idea. The critter's laughing and stuff, so he's taking that as a taunt. It's funny. Oh, then little Johnny, he's with the... Again, it has to be their grandparents. Doesn't really matter. He ends up seeing a picture while the grandpa is going through the newspaper, and he sees a picture of Charlie. And he says, that's him. And he pulls the critter crystal detection device out, and it's glowing bright green. And he says that's when you're supposed to take care of yourself and your family. So Charlie better hurry and get there. Then you have this other tenant who gets killed. Very stereotypical overweight woman with the moo-moo, with the curls in her hair and stuff that it looks like she hasn't been fucked since the bicentennial. That's this type of woman, and she goes into the basement. They're all in the basement, the critters, in the laundry room. She goes down there, and again, the puppet work looks really good. She freaks out, she sees them, and then one of the critters actually falls into a puddle of bleach, and there's a cool little effect there. Let me say this movie's so much better at this point in the movie, and there's, even if it tanks so hard for the next half of the film, it's still leagues upon the sea better than Ghoulies 3 Ghoulies Go to College. I'll say that right now. Oh, and that moo-moo woman, she doesn't get killed. I hit record first, I premature ejaculated. with the whole moo thing before I finish the scene. So Annie comes in, discovers the critter, says, what the hell are these things? And she rescues Moo Woman. What the fuck was that just now that happened? Did I miss something earlier when they said that she was like a bowler on the bowling team or something? Or did they just think it was cool to splice footage of a bowling ball going down an alley and hitting all the pins while she's throwing a garbage can, Annie, down the stairs, and it knocks all the critters out of the way? Is that supposed to be a callback to something she's good at, is my point? Or did that just happen for no reason whatsoever? Oh, so get this grand logic. Lil Leo and his stepfather, the landlord of this place, ends up coming over to the place, ends up shutting the power off on the floor that the family, Annie and the Menges, they're staying with their grandparents, whoever they all are, shuts all the power and lights off. Then he goes with Lil Leo to go look for them after he shut the power off. Why even shut the power off if you're gonna go talk to these people? Just to make it a little more spooky, right, for the critters? Because that's the only thing I can think of. I mean, it's at that point where you just start thinking anything like usual with me. Why are they trapped in this apartment complex to begin with? Isn't there a lot of entrances and exits to get out of this place? They didn't even try the front door. Then there's the window down. There's a few windows down in the laundry room. There's the windows on every floor for every apartment. Why are they barricading themselves in one room? The whole second act of this movie is so slow. There's nothing really going on. There's a few scenes that are cool with the critters, with the puppetry and everything, and the effects work. But there's nothing like on the level of the last movie. Like that whole scene in the restaurant where they're causing a muck and Ugg and Lee come in and blow them all away. I said that it's fantastic, the work with the puppetry there. We get nothing like that in this movie. Like, this is very, very slow moving. But at least the puppetry is still good of what we see, and at least they still look like fucking critters. Alright, that's pretty funny, because the dad, Clifford, got a quill, porcupine quill from one of the critters in his neck, and so did the Moo Woman. Rosie, I think her official name is, but we'll go with Moo Woman. They both got one in the neck each. So they're like I said, it like knocks you out in the last movie. And they're sitting there and the kids ask them, they're like, can you climb a ladder? And Moo Woman goes like, nope, can't climb a ladder. And then the father goes, I'll climb a ladder tomorrow. And then they both start laughing. That's funny as hell. And then they proceed to climb the ladder. I will say this, because right after I just said we didn't get like a great scene with puppetry, it's not a great scene, but we see the critters messing around in the kitchen, and they're spilling over baked beans, they're eating it. Looks good, but I will say the critters do look cheaper. Like, for sure. Like, you could definitely see it in that scene. Up until then, it wasn't too much of a difference. They look a lot more comical in this movie, as compared to the first two. So they don't look as scary. Critters are chugging dish soap and blowing bubbles. Having said that, though, even though they don't look as scary and they look cheaper, they still look damn good. Like, they don't look bad in any way whatsoever. Also, a fire broke out earlier, and now Charlie shows up to the rescue, and they talk again, but it's the same as they said in the second one. They go, uh-oh. If that's all they say, I'm fine with that. Like a little critter, all they can say is, uh-oh, I'm bitching. That's fine. As long as they're not having full-on conversations like the ghoulies do in the later ones. The critters are almost getting them, and like Lil Leo taking whatever it is and bashing one. He's going, I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. That's hilarious. And of course, since Charlie is a lovable goofball, he kind of saves the day, but screws up many times in the attempts until he finally does save the day. And all the critters are destroyed. Now, this was filmed, I think, at the same time as Critters 4, which now that makes even more sense that the writer or co-writer of the script for this directed the next one. But Charlie ends up going down, and let me say this happened in Los Angeles in the next movie. There better be no speculation or people who doubt that this happened or that these people are crazy. Like they thought with Brad in the second movie, that they thought he was nuts for the stories he told for the first movie. No, you had an entire apartment building get infested and attacked by creatures from unknown extraterrestrial origin. So don't tell me in the next movie that these people are thought of as kooks. But then again, it's Los Angeles, so there's a lot of kooks out there.
But yeah, so we get a to be continued here, since this was filmed, right after or right alongside Critters 4. So all the critters are seemingly taken care of, and then Charlie goes down into the basement, and there's 2 critter eggs left in the washing machine. And it's very annoying. The way they do this whole credits, like the end credits here, the sequence, they could have just let this scene play out, and then play the credits, and play to be continued. Then we get the credits. Instead, it's just every few seconds of Charlie walking around. Then he sees something. It's freeze frames on him, and you get more credits. And then he goes a little bit more, and he's about to open the washing machine, and it freezes. It's credit. It's very annoying. It really drags itself out for its own pleasure here. But when we finally get to see something, we see a hologram from Ugg. So we do get to see him telling Charlie not to exterminate these last 2 eggs, because the Intergalactic Federation makes the rules, and there's a rule that you're not allowed to exterminate a species. So these are the last 2 critter eggs in existence, and killing them would exterminate the critters forever. So since it's a rule for the Intergalactic Federation in this franchise, he has to put them in a pod. And they're going to be taken to who knows where for the next movie. And then a big intergalactic pod crashes into the basement, and it just says to be continued on top of Charlie's freaked out face. Let me say this. For Critters 3, for direct-to-video, 3rd installment in the series of mini creatures that we have a few of, as we know, this movie was nowhere near as bad as I was led to believe by so many people. This was not a bad movie. It's not good. I would never watch this again. Are you serious? Nothing really happens. The puppetry is good, of what we get of it. What we see of the critters is fine. It's just the story sucks. That's like the biggest thing. The story blows in this movie. It is terrible. Like I said, the pacing is awful too. This is one hell of a slow movie. Funny how the problem with this movie is I feel like they should have went balls to the wall crazy with the critters, like they do in Ghoulies Go to College. My issue with that movie is how balls to the wall crazy they went with the Ghoulies in Ghoulies Go to College. So, I mean, I think Gremlins 2 is like the best middle ground there. But this movie's not terrible by any means. Like, Lil Leo does a great job. Annie, the main girl, and they set up a date at the end. Oh, that's cute. She does a good job in this. The little kid Johnny, I mean, kid acting, but whatever, he's acceptable. Charlie's fun and lovable as always. The critters look fine. This movie's not terrible. This is like, alright, if Ghoulies 3, Ghoulies Go to College, is Friday 8, Jason Goes to Manhattan level quality, this movie is like John Carpenter's Halloween. Like, seriously, that's how much big of a difference in quality there is between those 2 entries. The 3rd entry in both of those franchises. Like, it's scary how much better this movie was. But again, I'd never watch it again because the story sucks. But Critters 3, so now they got, like, crystal critter detection room. So now they have crystal critter detection. Charlie ended up dropping what Lil Leo distraught. There's this guy named Mario. There's this dude, right? Why is it so funny? There's this guy. I gotta stop looking at him on the screen. That's what's doing it. And the sickness, that's not helping either. And he thinks it's just a rat. And he thinks it's just a rat. And he thinks it's one of his rats, so he tells it to go upstairs. Never thought I'd see the day, but we get a hot sneak. Lil Leo.
Critters 4 from 1992. Now, this surprised me when I was looking it up real quick here. Brad Dourif is in this. We have Don Opper, who plays Charlie. Anne Ramsey is in this in some role. Angela Bassett is in this. So there's good actors in this movie. And they filmed this back-to-back with Critters 3. So this Critters 3 came out in 91, so this is 92. So the year after. So we left off in the basement of the apartment complex in Los Angeles with Charlie, with the 2 critter eggs are the only ones left in existence, and the Intergalactic Space Federation, whatever the fuck it is, says you can't destroy a species completely. So he had to put them in a telepod, a big-ass telepod that just crashes through the whole apartment complex. All of LA isn't going to know that some crazy shit went down. But apparently in this one, we go to outer space. So get ready for Critters 4. Critters Go to Space. Now, I've never seen this one, and 5, and the little miniseries. So this is like a little blind watch me watch. I just never label blind watches like that anymore. So yeah, this is directed by Rupert Harvey, who co-wrote Critters 3. So then I guess since they were filming them simultaneously, they just had, what was it, Peterson, the girl's last name, who filmed 3, had her film that one while he was filming this one. Now what's strange is, when I was reading into this a little bit, it says that this one tries to be a more darker, less comedic film than the previous entries. Which is strange that it was filmed at the same time as Critters 3 and how comedic that movie is. I wonder how much darker or less comedic this one's going to be. You don't hear that often for movies, sequels that are filmed at the same time or back to back. Look at Sleepaway Camp 2 and 3. Imagine if one was the campy, awesome, hilarious one that we have in like Sleepaway Camp 2 and then 3 was dark as shit and just serious tone like the first movie. Doesn't happen often, so I'm very interested to see, first of all, how Charlie gets into space. This is in like 2040 or something like that. So how is he still alive? I'm sure they'll think of a good idea actually for that. I did forget to mention this at the end of Critters 3. I do like the line at the end from Charlie when Ugg's hologram is telling him about, the intergalactic law and that you can't exterminate these eggs because it would cause the whole species to become extinct. And Charlie goes, oh, well, yeah, but they're bad. Like, you taught me how bad they are. That's funny as hell. And because we get a recap here at the very beginning. And that really made me laugh again, and I forgot to mention it last time. Alright, so after that whole recap of the ending of Critters 3, Charlie, the lovable idiot that he is, retardedly gets into the space pod and gets cryogenically frozen. And that's how he's around in 2045. That's the year, not 2040. So 2045, Charlie's frozen, and he's going to be good old Charlie, not changed a bit, hasn't aged a day when he gets thawed out. Even though I am laughing at it, because it is crazy, it's good. Like, it's acceptable. Like, I accept that. And that's been like a running theme with this series. I don't want to keep comparing to the Ghoulies franchise, but it's very hard not to. How can you not? Especially since those two were the longer running ones of many creatures, since we only got 2 gremlins, and a munchies, and a hobgoblins, and those 2 movies, they might be fucking coming soon too. That way I never have to come back to this subgenre ever again. The subgenre of tiny terrors. Again, like the third one, this was direct to video, and it shows. Like, all the stuff in space at the beginning, and then you see like a guy in a spaceship, but it's filmed from the side, and you just see a screen with stars behind a fake spaceship that he's in. It looks very, very, very cheap. Guy we open up with, his name is Albert, and he's just chilling in this spaceship, this fake-ass looking one, and he says he's got 20 more days. He's like, just 20 more days. So he's got to sit there in space, like, and just watch shit go flying by for 20 days. Imagine what it would be like to be in space by yourself in a spaceship, and it looks stationary, like a state police officer waiting to pull someone over. And that's basically exactly what happens. He ends up seeing the pod go by that Charlie's in, his frozen ass body, and he ends up going and getting the pod, and they end up bringing it onto their spaceship. And don't forget, it's got 2 critter eggs, the last 2 in existence. So I have a pretty good idea where the plot of this movie is going. If you think about it, the premise for this movie is identical to Jason X, except for the fact that Charlie, the protagonist, gets cryogenically frozen. Well, I mean, the critter eggs are in there with him, so they're frozen too. Yeah, so they're frozen, taken to space, then they're going to hatch and wreak havoc, kill everybody. Jason gets cryogenically frozen. He goes, gets discovered by a spaceship. They bring him on board. They thaw him out, and he kills everybody. Man, Critters 4 was ahead of its time. The mind-blowing thing, after he gives us some nice exposition that he has a father, and he just says to himself, "See you soon, Dad." He's marking off his calendar to when he gets to go back to whatever planet he's from. Is there an Earth anymore? I don't even know. But I think it's hilarious. He has a TV in his spaceship. And he's sitting there, he puts headphones on, he's watching some black and white movie in 2045. This kid's maybe a teenager. He doesn't look like a cinephile. He doesn't look like a movie maniac or anything like that. Why is this kid watching a black and white film in 2045? It just goes to show you, the classics never go out of style. So remember Albert, the kid? Forget all about that because his name ain't Albert. His name's Ethan or something. He's like a young engineer on the spaceship. Albert is Brad Dourif, who's the captain of the ship. And he still sounds like Chucky a bit every time I close my eyes and listen to his voice, no matter what movie it is. Then we have Angela Bassett playing the pilot. Her name is Fran, in case it was bothering you. We got the same guy who plays Ugg in all these movies. I forget, Terrence something. So like I said, the cast is good. Like, this is a solid cast. So if this turns out to be just god-awful, which is how I was feeling Critters 3 was going to be at the very beginning of that watch. And like I said, that was nowhere near as bad as everyone's making it out to be, that I've heard from so many people. Critters 3 was fine. It was just boring as shit, and I'll never watch it again. Let's see how bad and how low they can go from there. Because if this movie really tanks in quality and bombs, it'll be even more of a shame because of the cast that we have here. So remember what I said about Brad Dourif, Albert being the captain? Forget all about that. He's not the captain. The captain is Captain Rick, and I'm not making this up, I swear. Buttram is his last name. I swear to you. Why? If you had the choice of any name for your character in your film, Buttram? But Captain Buttram is who we're flying with here on the spaceship. And he seems like a bit of a douchebag. Now, if I would have written this, Captain Buttram wouldn't be on a spaceship. He'd be in alternate reality Anderson Cooper's 80s gay nightclub. But I didn't write Critters 4. So I will say off the bat, the acting's fine in this. Like, it's good. And it damn well should be. We have Leo Johnson from Twin Peaks. And Twin Peaks Fire Walk with me in this too. So, yeah, he's a douchebag, Captain Buttram. Because it's Buttram, but we're going with Buttram. That's how it's spelled. So you're not going to argue with me on that one. They end up getting the pod. And Captain Buttram just instantly says, like, oh, check if it's stolen, and he wants to make money off this. So then some intergalactic overlord or some shit, it's out there. He shows up on the TV and says, thank you so much, I want to congratulate you, and thank you for finding something we lost a long time ago. And Captain Buttram, he's starting to get all ready with the money. He's like, yeah, how grateful are you? It's some funny stuff. So Angela Bassett, she's the pilot. She's against this. She's like, no, it's their pod. Just give it to them. And they are compensating them. So I forget what they said, how much. And it's probably in some weird space language anyway. That's not real dollars or anything. So it doesn't matter. But Captain Buttram wanted to go just unload it for 10 times as much. And they pretty much took a vote between everybody. And it was 3-2. So they put the TV back on. They said, like, oh, sorry, we're getting a bad connection. So they could talk about it in private. And this guy just waits there for like 5 minutes while they're talking. You could just picture him waiting there, staring at the thing, waiting for the signal to come back in. Doesn't know that they're talking behind his back. And then they bring him up and say, well, we're going to have to, meet up with your ship. He says, it's already been arranged. We'll see you soon. And he warns them, please don't let any of the people on your crew mess with or tamper with or try to open the capsule in any type of way. And they say understood. They're not good listeners. Maybe it was just the screen for when, in the very beginning, when the younger guy, forgot his name already, was sitting in the lower part, like his crib, and watching the black and white movie. Maybe it was just the screen they were using for the stars and stuff, made it look real cheap, because the rest of the spaceship here looks pretty good. Like, for whatever the hell the low budget was on this, it's a pretty good looking spaceship. So they end up flying to this spaceship that they got to meet up and drop this capsule off. And when they get there, nobody there. except for a computer named Angela. And it doesn't work. The computer's all fucked up. And the only way to get answers out of it is to ask, like, the opposite. I don't know what the hell they were thinking with this. And it's so slow. Like, we're at a half hour into this movie. I'm ready to blow my brains. We get to see the silhouette of a young naked Angela Bassett. And then we get to see the non-silhouette naked young Angela Bassett, that's a positive. Alright, not the worst first kill here. So, and it's Captain Buttram. So they knew to take his ass out immediately. He goes snooping around the pod because he plans on just taking whatever's in there. They don't know what's in there yet. And just splitting and leaving the whole crew so he can make mad money. So he's messing around. And it is Ethan, the youngest dude. He ends up coming and he sees what he's doing, but Buttram, he's ready. He takes the fucking fire extinguisher, smashes this guy in the face, knocks him unconscious. But then Charlie gets out of the pod when Buttram opens it. And then Charlie, I don't know how he forgets it, and he's fine. Like this, he comes out fine. He's not frozen or anything. He just comes out completely normal. So when does it stop freezing him? Was he floating around space for years unfrozen? Or does, like, the freezing process stop as soon as you open the door and you're instantly unfrozen? Because I don't know how any of that works. But he forgets about the eggs. And he goes, oh, the eggs. And it's too late. Buttram already opened it. And then a baby critter jumps into his mouth. He's running around. He's pushing Charlie out the way. Whoa, whoa. He can't breathe and shit. He ends up just collapsing and dying. Not the best way to go out for Buttram. But they got 2 critters now that hatch from those 2 eggs. So is there a way they multiply or something? Because 2 critters should not be a hard task to take out. For 5 minus 1 now. 4 people on this spaceship. How's the critters look? Honestly, I couldn't even goddamn tell you. Because we're halfway through this movie. And that's the first instance that we saw the critter. Is when he jumped into the guy's throat. Buttram. And now he's dead. You don't see anything. You see it looks like they're using a lot of usage of shadows and stuff to hide the puppets. You could tell. With the budget this movie probably had. Even though it was shot side by side with 3, I mean, the puppetry still looked great in that for the most part. So, I mean, maybe for this one they were running out of money. They decided, all right, we're going to have to hide the puppets and the critters as much as possible in the darkness. So after Ethan gains consciousness back, him and Charlie end up meeting up with everybody else, and Charlie just gives a whole rundown of what the Krites are and what the critters are and that he kills them and gives us a whole rundown of the series, basically. And of course they do not believe him. Leo from Twin Peaks just like storms off, yeah, bullshit, and he just walks away. Then we get this whole confusing, it feels so forced, and it feels like forced in there just for what I was just talking about. That there's 2 critter eggs. We need more than 2 critters, so they force this shit in there. One of them gets on a computer and finds like an old document of a doctor on this spaceship that they're on. And this doctor was doing research and like experiments on different alien organisms to try to increase the rate of reproduction. And then they ended up like doing something that makes the critters like reproduce as rapid as you can imagine, and they're just super fuck bunnies, I guess, and they make critters like really, really fast. That's their way of getting more than those 2 critters onto the spaceship, and I don't really buy it. So Bernie / Leo Johnson ends up going to the pharmacy, because I said he don't believe in the critters, and he starts stealing a bunch of medication, pills and shit. He's just taking stacks of bottles, throwing it into a bag, and then the critters attack him. And again, like Critters 3, and I'd imagine they use the same puppets filming these 2 movies back to back. They look fine. But goddamn is this movie slow. There is nothing that goes on in this movie. Not even Brad Dourif, Angela Bassett, and Leo Johnson from Twin Peaks could save this movie. This is so bad. Like, this is the movie. This is the one in the franchise. We're at the 50-minute mark. There's like a half hour left. This is bad. Even the dialogue is fine, because the acting is good, for the most part here. But the script, again, that's the biggest issue with both of these movies, 3 and 4. The scripts are awful. They are so terrible that it's getting hard for me to finish this movie. And that doesn't happen often. This movie gets so out there. So the critters are breeding now. And the critters, first of all, when Charlie says that he's from Earth and everything, and tells about his past, and he says the year, they say, because he says that's going to be next year. And he says, Charlie, you've been floating around out there for half a century. We're nowhere near Earth. That's what that fucker says, the younger dude. We are nowhere near Earth. But yet the critters, after there's a whole batch of eggs from when they bred sometime in the past, the eggs hatch, the critters get on a spaceship and they go for the nearest inhabited planet, which is Earth. Oh, I don't want to hear that the nearest planet with life on it is Earth, yet the younger dude told Charlie we're nowhere near Earth. Also, side note, because you can't find this fucking movie anywhere. They won't give this away. I mean, you could buy it or rent it on Amazon. Besides that, it ain't streaming anywhere. So I gotta watch it on Look Movie on the laptop. But I had Terrifier on earlier, because I haven't seen the original in probably a year or so when I did a video on it. And I'm so used to hitting play for the TV when I'm recording these videos, not starting the movie on the laptop, that I keep hitting Terrifier, and then I'm pissed at myself that I should have done the Terrifier Revisited instead of Critters 4. Also, just to make it worse for the crew and to put a time limit on shit, the computer, remember the computer Angela, who you gotta speak the opposite to for her to, complete her commands? She ends up announcing, and I don't know why she announces it, nobody asked, but maybe that's why she said it. Because no one asked. Someone asked her, she wouldn't tell you. But she starts saying that there's a radiation leak and they only got a few hours before the spaceship gets critical. Now, did I miss something? Most likely 100%. Why can't they just get on their spaceship and leave this big spaceship? Why are they dealing with any of this? Is there an explanation for that out there? Did I miss something where their spaceship, blew up when they landed here on this one, or it got destroyed, or it doesn't work in some way? Because I didn't see any of that, hear any of that, or remember any of that. So why don't they just get on the ship and leave? So Ugg shows up, which he was the overlord from earlier, is demanding the capsule. But they call him Tesla or something like that. So they don't call him Ugg, so I had no idea it was him. This movie is so bad in just the nothing happens department. It could drive you to drink. I literally just made a very stiff drink to get through the last half hour of this movie. That's how bad the boredom is. I've been actually counting. You see the spots on the wood? All up there. It's throughout the whole room. I've been counting some of the wood spots instead of paying attention to this movie. This is how boring this film is. I'm kind of shocked. The baby critters, they look cool, though. That's what I mean. This isn't a bad movie. It's not a terrible film. That's the distinction I always try to make with movies. It's boring as all hell. I wouldn't wish this upon my worst enemy. Watch it sit through this movie. That's how boring it is. But it's not a bad movie. I mean, the acting's good. I've named the cast several times. They all do a good job. The puppets look fine. The kills aren't great. I mean, that's not a highlight of the series anyway, but you don't really get anything good here. It is a little darker than at least the last two and three. But since nothing happens throughout the whole movie, basically, it doesn't matter if it's darker or not. If anything, this movie needed more comedy in it to at least make you laugh a bit. The ship setting looks fine. I'm reaching for anything that'll reach its hand back out, to give positives to. But it's not a terribly made film. It's not a bad movie. But the quality drop, even from 3 to this one, is astronomical for me. Oh, thank God it's over. So, Ugg, for some reason, / Tesla, whatever his name is in this, he's a bad guy now, because then Charlie at the end, he shoots him, kills Ugg, so he's gone. Then the whole space station explodes, which should render the critters completely extinct. But we have a Critters 5. I can't wait to see how they bring the critters back from extinction in the next movie. Unless it's a prequel. I didn't look into any of that. Easily could do that. But God, I'm not looking forward to that one. But Fran, Angela Bassett, the younger dude, and Charlie, they survive. They take off in the UGG spaceship right when the big-ass spaceship explodes. And they just fly into space and head to Earth. Which they said before, is nowhere near them. But it seems like super close compared to the way he made it sound. Critters 4, absolute train wreck of a movie. The script is god-awful. It's just a boring movie. That's like the only word to describe it, is a boring film. Because there are some positives here. But not enough to ever sit through this again. Like, I don't care if someone offered me $1 billion. I would absolutely take that money to watch it again. But if someone offered me like 100, it would be hard to accept that money to watch this movie again. That's how boring this film was. So, Critters 5 next. Because it would extinct. And he gets cryogenically frozen. Charlie accidentally crawls into the space pod. And he gets cryogenically frozen. Like he just chills there. Like a state police officer. Actually, if you think about it, this is pretty much identical to Jason Goes... And I swear I'm not making this up. Butt ram. He says, please. Captain Rick Butt ram. Charlie ends up getting into the space pod. Stupidly. And I'm not making this up, I swear to you. Butt ram. Who would name a character that? Okay. Captain Rick Butt. And then Captain Butt Ram, he's starting again. And he's running around and pushing Butt Ram. No, he is Butt Ram.
Alright, boys and ghouls, we are on the final Critters film. Because, again, there's an 8-episode miniseries that debuted on Shudder a few years ago, but now it's not on Shudder, so now I don't know where to find it. So at least this is the last of the films. And Critters 5, or Critters Attack, which is the actual title for this, this is a made-for-TV reboot of the franchise. So we have Dee Wallace in here, who's playing the same character as the original movie, but like the name's different, I read, because they wanted to avoid like legal issues. Now, I tried watching this movie twice. I woke up randomly 3 a.m. or so. Twice tried watching this, and both times fell asleep. Like 20 minutes in. But I was enjoying what I was watching, so let's fully watch Critters Attack, the 5th and final Critters movie. Yeah, so the very opening scene of this movie is not bad. It's actually pretty good. There's some kid, just like in the first movie, and he's watching with a telescope, and then he sees the Critters spaceship go flying through the air and crash. And he says to his sister Drea, who is the main character here, and she says it's probably nothing, go back to bed. Then some guy who's playing Charlie's role, even that's the only thing that sucks about it being a reimagining or a reboot here, is we don't have Charlie's character, we don't have Don Hopper. So this guy sees the thing crash, and he goes to check the site out where it crashed, and then you see the red glowing eyes of the critter, looks really cool, and then he just gets dragged off screen, and then Critters, the title card comes up. It's cool. So Drea, the main character, and her brother Philip, he was the one that was looking through the telescope the night before and saw the spaceship, and he like already believes in aliens, so he's like a kind of an alien nut. They're living with their Uncle Lewis. I don't know what happened to their parents. Like, I don't know if they even say it or if I just completely missed it. Doesn't matter. She's pissed off that she didn't get into her college of choice, which her best friend got into when this is her second time scrubbing out, getting into Leroy, I think, college. So she's all pissed off. Uncle Lewis gives her a little pep talk. So then we see the aunt, which is Dee Wallace, so Aunt Dee. She goes and she has this like hidden compartment behind one of the walls that turns into like a safe room, and it has like computers and locators for the Krites. So apparently this is like a soft reboot, because this is the same character she plays in the original. So she's been through a critter invasion before. Obviously she has this whole room dedicated to destroying them if they ever come back. And she even said, she goes, Krites. And then we get a scene here. This is already better than everything in Critters 4. That body that was attacked the night before, who went to check out the UFO, you see the critters start bursting out of its chest alien style, but the little critters are bursting out. The effects look pretty damn good. Like for a TV movie, very good. And then you see a bunch of them pop out of his chest, and they're Sonic the Hedgehog rolling around and stuff. The puppetry looks really good. So Drea works as a delivery girl for some restaurant, and the kid who had the critters burst out his chest, who found them, like when they crashed, he also worked for the same restaurant. So this kid was a delivery boy, and he ended up seeing the spaceship. So don't work at this place. Then we go right to a little bit of stupidity here. It's funny a little at the very beginning of this gag. She goes to deliver something to the college that she's been denied from twice. And she knows the guy, the security dude. He's like a young guy. He's one of the security people for the college. And he has all the keys. And he says, did you listen to the tape? So he made her a tape. So she makes this whole excuse that she should have it in the player. It's not. She ends up putting it in, and it's just terrible bagpipe music. And she's trying to listen to it and not make like a disgusted face. And then that's all right. Like, that's funny. But then he literally goes into the security booth and pulls out his bagpipes, and he goes... Then it just gets a little stupid. So it sucks. This girl's constantly reminded that she can't get into this school. And it means a lot to her also, because her mother, who's not around anymore, assumedly she died, went to the same college. And she has like a picture of her on the stairs while she's parked, looking at the exact stairs that her mom's the picture of. It's kind of funny, even though it is very sad. And then her friend, she goes and gives this delivery, and she meets her old best friend, who they had like a pact of going to this school together, and the friend got in, she didn't. Everything is a reminder to her that she didn't make it into this school. It's like, you feel bad for her character. Oh, that's right, alright, I kind of remember this from when I was falling asleep watching this morning. Her friend ends up giving her like contact information for this woman who's on like the board of directors for the school, who needs a babysitter. And figures, here, if you take the job and babysit her kids, then maybe that'll help you get into the school. So she ends up taking this babysitting job. And then we get a scene when the critters kill these campers. Already, at like 20 minutes into this movie, it is so much better than Critters 4. Like, so much better. At least there's already been critter attacks, too. And they both look pretty good. Like this one, the guy just gets bit on the shoulder and then they get dragged away again. But the puppetry looks good. The critters look really good. They look spooky again. So she goes to babysit the kids of the whoever she is on the board of directors or whatever for the school. And she takes her brother Philip because like Philip knows the daughter somehow, I guess through school. And he likes her. And these kids, what fucking weird children. Like, she's very, very smart, the daughter, but, like, she doesn't want to, like, do anything. And then the kid, the son, the mom says before she leaves that he just communicates through text. So, like, he won't talk to you unless you're, like, communicating with him via some type of text on some type of social media device or a text message. It's very strange. I gotta say, though, the main chick who plays Drea, I like her. I like the character. She has some funny lines here. Even though the children are kind of annoying at first, they have charm to them too. So the four of them end up going on a picnic, and they start wandering outside, and then they start hearing some noises out there in the woods, and they don't know what it is. Just like most of the characters and pretty much all of these tiny terrors subgenre of horror, no one seems alarmed when they discover an unknown creature that they've never seen before and knows shouldn't exist, but somehow is there. They just decide to take it home with them. So if you guessed the sounds that they heard in the woods was a critter, ding ding, you're right. They're white now for some reason. I'm guessing it's just this one because we saw one or two earlier, and then the few that popped out of the guy's stomach, they were all black. Maybe they're diversifying the critters. But he looks cool. He has mostly white fur, but he has a little bit of black fur. And then the girl, I don't know her name, man. Just the daughter of the board of directors. She's like, we have to bring it back with us. She's hurt. And Drea's like, no, there's no way. It's a wild animal. And of course, they end up bringing this thing back. And they put it in the backpack. And they're carrying it. It's fun. This is a really cool scene. So they end up going to a ranger station in the woods in the park that they're in to try to have this animal identified, this white critter. And when they go and knock on the door, all the people that are in that ranger station, they're being currently eaten by critters, and there's blood everywhere, and they're like all being eaten. It looks very, very good. So Aunt Dee Wallace, she heads out to go take care of the critter problem. The rest of the kids, after they stop at the sheriff, park ranger place, they don't get an answer, but the critters, a few of them see that they have one of their critters, the white one, in their backpack. So some of them start following them. Then we get an awesome kill with this construction guy who's just like chilling on a pole. And then the critters are Sonic Hedgehogging their way in, and they all start biting and tearing this guy apart. So they end up naming this thing Bianca. That's what they call their little pet critter, is Bianca. Snowball was Drea's pitch. I'm more on board with Snowball. Bianca? I mean, whatever. Too smart for her own good, stupid daughter is the one who picked that name. Then it's absolutely hilarious that the son that they're watching, who won't talk unless it's through text messaging, he finally opens his mouth when a critter appears and bites his leg. He screams like a fucking baby. He finally has some dialogue. So we find out what happened to Drea and Philip, I think, right? The brother? Their mother. She was in a car accident, and Drea blames herself because she snuck out to a party and her mom was driving to go get her, and she got in an accident and died. I mean, whatever. I really don't care. It's not something that I'm heavily invested in this movie. But they felt they had to throw that in there to make a little connection between Philip and the daughter, and like their little like blossoming romance. So then Dee Wallace shows up to the wooded area where they found Bianca. I'm just calling her Snowball. You saw the pictures already. Come on, Snowball is much better than Bianca. I don't know what crack that kid's smoking. Whatever kind, it's probably why she never shuts up. It's funny, the way that Dee Wallace is all dressed and everything, like she's like a bounty hunter, just like Uggan Lee from the early movies in this franchise. But she looks like a slightly older version of the android from Jason X. Like, if you put them side by side, which I'll probably do for this, they look just like each other. Just she looks a lot older. Alright, so I don't really know exactly what the fuck just happened in this last scene, but it looked really cool. Uncle Lewis, the sheriff, he's in his car, and the critters are trying to attack him, and he's, blocked himself off inside the car. And then he hits the siren button, and the sirens go on, and then he looks to the right, and there's a critter on the mailbox. And then he sees that it's shaking, and then he hits the siren button again, and it stops. Then he hits the siren button again, and he starts shaking again. And it shakes so much, the critter just explodes in a bunch of green shit. It's a great explosion. What made that critter explode? Fuck if I know, but I mean, the effects, it looks great. So Drea and the kids, they're all held up at the restaurant she works at with the Asian owner. And Uncle Lewis, the sheriff, who was just having the confrontation with the critters and saw one explode for no reason whatsoever, he ends up like crashing into something right outside, and Drea comes out, and in his dying breath he tells them they can't handle sound. So in this movie, apparently, like high pitched, very loud sound will kill the critters. And now I just thought of the bagpipe guy from earlier. I swear to God, this movie's doing alright. If it brings that bagpipe thing into existence to kill the critters, that this guy starts playing his bagpipes and they all start exploding, I don't know how I'm going to feel about that. Whew, God, thank critter. Because then, like a scene later, you hear bagpipes. And I was saying, God, please don't do this to me. And they end up going closer to the bagpipes. And it's the kid that she knows who plays them. But he's dead already, and there's a critter that's munching on him, and it's making the bagpipes make a sound, which shouldn't that sound be hurting the critter, like, according to Uncle Lewis? None of that makes sense. At least he's dead, so we know we're not going to get that ending. So now they're at the college, and they meet up with Drea's friend. That, you know, they had this dream to go to this college together, and her friend made it, she didn't. And this other dickhead guy, and, like, they broadened the group a bit here. So I'm guessing just for more kills for the last, like, 20 minutes of this movie. So the dicky-headed guy, he ends up running outside, acting like, yeah, I got this. And we get a critter ball. It's the first one that we've seen, and the only one that we've seen since part 2. And it doesn't look bad. The effects don't look, amazing or anything. The way that they shoot it, though, like, for the budget that this had, which I can't imagine how big the budget was for this movie, looks pretty good. And it's cool just to see a critter ball again. But that critter ball, it absolutely annihilates that guy. Just crunches over him, and then the rest of them, they were watching, including, like, the younger kids. So she's like, I'm sorry you had to see that. We got to get to your mom's office. Sorry you had to see that. I'm so sorry. She's apologizing profusely. It's hysterical. So they're getting chased by the critters. They get on, like, the football field, and then there's, like, a shack, and then the girl, Drea, remembers the thing about the sound, and they grab an air horn, and they start using it, and it's affecting the critters. And then we get a shot that looks terrible here. This is like the only shot that I've seen so far in this movie that the effects just look awful. They're rolling on the ground like Sonic the Hedgehog, and there's a bunch of them rolling towards them, but it's done with some type of CGI, and it looks awful. It looks so bad. So then Snowball, or Bianca, claws start growing. She's like a Pokemon evolving to the next level. And then there's like a whole 2-3 minute sequence. It's ridiculous. Of them all just like beating critter balls and critters with shovels and like other like utensils. It looks ridiculous, but it's fun. So then Dee Wallace shows up. For some reason, I mean, she didn't really even have to show up here. They go through the school, like, one last sweep. She kills a few critters, and then the critter ball is all that's left. And then she says, stand back, and she gives Drea a little ray gun or whatever she uses, too. So the two of them shoot this critter ball, and it just explodes. Green shit goes all over the place, flies all over them. And then the brother gets his smart-ass little line to end this movie where he whispers to Drea, I told you aliens are real. And she gives him a look like, screw you. And then it ends. Let me say this. This is the best Critters movie since Critters 2. Without a doubt. This is so much better. Compared to Critters 4, this is a goddamn masterpiece. Compared to Critters 3, this is just an excellent film. Now, like, on a non-critter scale, like, I would never really watch this movie again. It doesn't great, but it's entertaining. I would say definitely just watch Critters 1 and 2, and then this movie. This movie, the characters were pretty fun. The gore was decent. It was pretty bloody, this movie. Like, the effects look good. The puppets look good. The critters look pretty spooky. There's not really anything negative I can say about this movie, especially coming off the last two. But for a fifth movie and a reboot, this is a great reboot because this series needed one after the last two movies. So, Critters 5 or Critters Attack, it's alright in my book. Take care, everybody.